It's 34 degrees.
Welcome to Creative Louisville on WCHQ FM, where every week we sit down with individuals and organizations right here in Louisville who are making a name for themselves in the fields of theater, music, independent film, authors, visual art, and so much more. Learn more about how and why they are drawn to being creative and where you can enjoy their work. Today we are joined by filmmaker David Katz. David, welcome to the show.
Hey Ray, thanks a lot for having me.
Now, first of all, let's start off with the big film that you have created. It's called A Mac and a Mic. So give us the premise of A Mac and a Mic.
It's about a flight instructor, and he basically wants to pursue rap opposed to flying, and he got into flying from his dad, who owns a flight school, and he kind of realizes that he's not very happy flying, and he would rather be doing pursuing rap, basically. And his dad, an old traditional with a Yiddish accent, Jewish man, is it's not very in his plans for his son. So kind of some clashing there with father son, and then and a bit of him breaking off to try to do what he's passionate about. And can't say it's not somewhat based off a true story, but
drawn from real life inspiration, and I'm assuming about your own life. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, okay. Yep, and partially true. Yep.
So that means you're into your flight instructor yourself. Is that correct?
That's correct. I do keep it current, and I used to do that full time to build flight hours, and now I keep it current, but I don't really instruct anymore. I'm. Yeah.
What exactly made you decide I need to put this story to film?
To be honest, it was one morning, and it's really easy for people to talk about. Oh, I have an idea for a movie, or people got these ideas for startup apps or whatever. And for me, it was more of like, you know what, I'm actually going to do it. I keep talking about all these movie ideas the last couple of years. I'm helping people with their projects, and I want to actually do something. So you know what? And it was one morning I was really hungover. And I was like, you know what, I need to do something productive with my life, So I just started writing based off of my story with my dad, and how I was kind of taking a traditional aviation path that was kind of set up for me, and then I kind of had the thoughts of I need to break off and do something else, so I kind of wrote a movie based upon that. Not to say I did exactly what my character Eli did in the movie in real life, but I did maybe what I wish I would have done. Maybe, I don't know.
You augment the reality to make it a little bit more palatable for a viewing audience. I get that. You and I both had films in a recent film festival. We actually had Christopher Gatrost on our show here about 2 or 3 weeks before the festival, the Elizabethtown E-Town Film Festival, I should say. It's abbreviated. And yours was one of those films that had shown, but you also, unlike most of those other films, you've already are showing that film on Amazon Prime.
That's correct. Yes,
that's for a filmmaker. I'm assuming, how many films have you actually made yourself?
Well, if you include short films, maybe 4 or 5. And I did a lot of projects with just friends in high school when we were younger, middle school, just messing around in the woods. But I guess I won't really count those. But my dad and I, we made when we were back in the CAP, the Civil Air Patrol, we made one together, and then with a bunch of cadets, and then we made one called Flight of the Vampire. But this was one where we actually got decent equipment, good audio and stuff, and kind of tried to take it, I guess, to the next level.
Nice. How many films have you attempted to get onto a streaming service at all?
This was the first one for to try to get on something to the capacity of Prime. On my YouTube channel, I have a fair amount between my dad and I, a fair amount of shorts and that kind of thing, and then a bunch of projects I've been in. But for me, actually making one, that was the first real.
Not just simply because I know quite a few filmmakers myself that have never had one on a streaming service like Amazon Prime, Netflix, any of those. What is the process to submit a film to be to appear on a streaming service? Is there something is there a process that is kind of set in stone, or do you just have to know somebody?
You know, I think Amazon Prime is kind of the hidden little secret, and hopefully other filmmakers will hear this and will be able to catch on. But essentially, it's almost kind of becoming a YouTube in a way. But as far as if you're building an acting resume or a directing resume, to have it on Prime over YouTube, I think could stick out a little bit more. Essentially, you get the film captioned. I don't know if there's a minimum time requirement or not, but if you get it captioned, I'm sure it can't be anything too, well, we'll just say like a 50 Shades of Grey type,
right,
uncensored type thing. But 50 Shades of Grey, but uncensored type, that kind of film, but adult film. But essentially get it captioned. To do that, you pay about $1 a minute for services that will, I think I use rev.com for that. And then pretty much, you got to put all the details of the film and that sort of thing. And there are certain requirements. You have to make a poster, and that I kind of had to tweak that because it didn't get accepted. Because, when you look on Prime, you have to be able to see the different, titles, and you have to have, it has to be clear. So, the process isn't really that bad for anybody trying to put a film out there. I think that's a great way to kind of get your stuff out there. And then for a resume too, you at least put that on a resume saying, Amazon Prime, and, director, if they're hiring an actor, see, oh, you're on a movie on Prime. It's a little bit easier for them to see, and because I think most people have it. And it is, I think YouTube's great, but I just think it kind of maybe sticks out a little bit. So,
yeah. Yeah, I kind of think so too, just because YouTube, the name right there says it all. You can do it yourself. You can put it on there yourself. However, with Prime, you have to put a little bit more into the application process. So it stands out a little bit more. It's like there's somebody out there that said, yes, we want your video on here. You don't just put it there yourself. That's great. So tell us about the casting of the film. From what I understand, there's a few folks in there that you do pretty well.
Yep, that's correct. Yeah, that was probably the best part about it. And if only the people in the film see the film, at least all my friends had a fun time, I think, and family that got a chance to be in it. And the character Moshe, my dad, obviously I knew he would be perfect because, I had to have somebody I had to have a big blowout with. And me and my dad have had plenty of those. And so that was great. Yeah, that was definitely great. Not bragging on my part, but I think that was well casted for him. He did a great job. And my mom, I just thought she would play well, kind of a passive, type character. And then I had a friend I used to work with at a place out in Crestwood called Open Range, and we used to work in the paintball facility together, Young C. And we used to sit and rap in the parking lot after work. I was maybe 17, 18, and just had a blast with him hanging out, and I was like, this guy would be perfect for this. The guy he kind of links up with, starts making music, and then a bunch of the extras we had in the basement were a lot of friends and family. The director, Jeff Boucher, was a friend who I know through a friend, the Bouchers, Tom Boucher, and just family friends, and got their whole family involved, and they were great. And he brought his equipment down from Ohio, and he does it professionally. So to have him do it for basically just to help me was just awesome, and just get everybody together. So it was great.
Let's kind of go back a little bit when you were younger. What was the first artistic thing that you remember doing?
I used to do all these Jim Carrey impressions when I was young, and I just had a lot of energy and just loved Jim Carrey and always trying to imitate him. Me and friends, we would always dress up in we were the neighborhood patrol. We were probably the nerdiest kids you could ever meet. I mean, I remember, a lady, her dog went in somebody's yard, and, Miss, are you going to clean that up? And it was just, we were just on the complete opposite now, I like to think, but we were just completely square, but we would dress up in our army stuff and make little army movies and that kind of thing, and go in the woods and stuff, and put a lot of little short films together, and it was just fun, and just the joy of making movies and knowing that it was just the fun of doing it, which I think is why I like to do it now still. So, is there anything in particular that you remember that kind of triggered you into saying, I need to do more of this in particular, like filmmaking, I should say? Starting in aviation, and when I started actually flying professionally and sitting there in the flight deck, it wasn't really my passion. I wasn't passionate about flying. And here it is. A lot of people's dreams are, I want to be an airline pilot, or, that's what they want. But that's them. And that's not me. That, it was more of, I needed a career, and my dad got me into aviation. But then sitting in the right seat of a regional jet and realizing, and even private jets, and realizing like this job it's an amazing job if you love aviation, you love flying. And there are parts of it I love, but not nearly as much as making films. And then I just kind of sit there thinking like, I just get more enjoyment out of making films and that sort of thing. And even though it doesn't necessarily pay the bills for me, so that was definitely a pivotal thing for me, and just always going out with friends and in my 20s and partying and thinking I want to do something constructive, not just going out drinking and chasing women and stuff. I want to make movie. I want to do something constructive. So that too, and the inspiration you get from watching movies. So,
has there been anybody in particular in your life that has really pushed you towards doing more of this, or has it all been self-driven only?
I would say a lot of it has been self-driven, although most of my family and friends are supportive, but yet they will be the first to humble me and say, you need to be realistic. And that's kind of where in the Mike and a Mac, the movie, where it kind of comes from, with my dad basically saying, you need to follow your duties as a flight instructor. This rap is so silly, blah, 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 blah. I'm done with this flying, blah, blah. So it's just kind of that kind of thing. So I would say everybody's supportive, and people I work with, they make fun of me all the time, and had a lot of supportive friends. And the guy who filmed it came from Ohio. I think we have the same passion, even though he does a lot of more commercial stuff. I think he just loves making movies. So he's been very supportive. And
that actually, since I've seen your movie, that actually jarred a question that I personally had about the movie itself. How closely, word for word, did you guys script? Was it give him an idea and let him say what he wants when it comes to either any of your actors, yourself or your father or any of the other actors, or was it you gotta say it, punch this point, and this point for the scene to work? How in depth did you get on the actual text of the movie?
Sure. It was a fairly loose script and a lot of improv. So it wasn't. I think the script was less than 30 pages, and we made it a 60-minute movie. And they say normally a minute a page. So we were definitely a lot of improv and added scenes and stuff, and maybe a few things taken away. But yeah, a lot of and me with being kind of the one who I guess wrote it. I was fine. Just wanted people to have fun with it, and just I'm not at that level where I could be word for word, because I'm not gonna. I was way off with a lot of things I wrote and just played off it. So I think natural it's just the best. So
I have to say that it came across incredibly well, especially the arguments.
No,
because you even though you guys were fighting, it almost looked like you were both holding back smiles.
There was definitely a couple.
In keeping with the film a little bit longer, did you have a budget in mind for the film, and how deeply did you break that budget?
Sure. So it was a fairly low budget film. The biggest thing we paid for was there was one actor which I paid because I just wanted to make sure he would be there, which I not much in comparison to what Leo makes for The Wolf of Wall Street, big major movies. But for the most part, obviously my dad and mom volunteered. Most of the main actors volunteered. I pretty much bought when we did the big basement scenes, I bought drinks for everybody, and the airplanes, we got a bunch of my good friend Bob Wagner volunteered his airplane, and so we had a lot of free airplanes, pretty much. I paid for fuel, and a lot of the flying scenes were B-roll, so we already had. So really, I think I put it on IMDb. We did it under $5,000, but I think realistically, out of my pocket, I think maybe a couple $1,000s really, and that was kind of spread out with how you look at it. If you're looking at wear and tear on the airplane or this or that from usage from the guys volunteering their planes and things like that. But really a fairly low budget film, and just it kind of shows that people come together and you have a good cameraman and a good audio. You can really do a lot, I think.
In looking back at the finished product, it's out there, people are watching it. When you look at it, do you see things that you want to change? You want to say, oh no, take that off of Prime, put this version up instead because I need to go back and redo this part. Have you run across any of scenes like that?
Absolutely, yeah. The B-roll flying parts I know could have been cut down a lot more. There was just some time where it's just like I could see as a viewer you could get a little bit bored with parts of it. So definitely in the editing process to cut it down even more, which I was told from a few people, yeah, cut it, and I did cut down, but they were another buddy, my buddy RJ in Indy, who I've been in some of his films, was saying, yeah, you need to keep cutting it down, which I completely agree. But there gets to a point, as somebody who's making film for the love of it, and you're balancing, your full-time job. It can be kind of tough, and then your wife, and then you got kids, and it can be kind of tough to do that. So it got to the point where I just said, final cut.
This is good. This works. It all flows. It sounds good. At some point you do have to walk away from it, and there's always work to do on it. I've had folks in here that not only filmmakers but authors of novels, and I ask them the same question, and the same answer always comes is like, I could keep working on that until the end of time. I'll find other things to tweak, but you got to stop at some point and then trust that the work is good, and obviously is, because you've gotten in film festivals with it. Did you win an award on that one at E-Town?
We did not. No, we did not. Yeah, we did not. Yep.
Neither did I. But you're Christopher. Come on, man. I know he's listening now.
Ray and Chris, your all's films also were great and very fun and entertaining to watch. So.
And speaking of kind of going back and doing things, looking back on everything that you've done as an actor and now as a filmmaker as well, is there anything you would have done differently when you started to get to where you're at quicker?
I'd say probably the biggest thing I may look back on and regret is when I kind of my flying career kind of came to a halt, and I before I made the pivotal point to get a aircraft dispatch license, I had about 6 months in that period, and before I got my license, and I would talk with my dad, and I'm like, you know what, this is my chance to go move out to LA and pursue acting and really try it. Like, what is the worst case scenario? I don't have kids. I'm not, at the time I was single. I don't have a girlfriend. There's nothing tying me down. What's the worst case scenario? I go to LA, I fail, I come back, and that failure, I don't even think that'd be considered a failure, just to try. And then I come back, and okay, I'll get my dispatch license, and now I'll work towards a more stable career, which now as an aircraft, just do flight planning and that kind of thing. Not as exciting as filmmaking, but or as passionate about it, but to me that was a pivotal decision, and my dad influenced that, and I thank my dad for that, because stability is great, a stable job, and you see the starving artist, and not just in film but rap and music and everything, so I thank my dad for that, but in a way too I kind of wonder what could have been, and but I am grateful, and I like to think that it all happened the way it was supposed to happen. But I will always look back like I kind of did take the cowardish way of the stable. And some people say, no, they would call me an idiot to move out to LA. But if I were to tell my dad, and being his dad, you shouldn't pursue flying like his mom told him, which I talked about in the film, you should take a stable career and become an accountant or this or that, because flying wasn't what it is now, it would have been the same kind of situation, I think. So I think kind of the thing I learned from that is you do got to go for it, I think, if you got the opportunity, and I did, and I didn't. So I'm happy with how it worked out. I wouldn't have met my now wife if I didn't, and I wouldn't be here talking with you and getting to meet other filmmakers, and maybe we can bring more film to Louisville, which I think I see more of it coming. I don't think you have to be out there, but there is a part that'll always be like, dang, you know what, I should have tried. So I think you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So.
When you first decided you wanted to do more in the way of acting and even filmmaking, did you take any kind of school lessons, or is it all just from your own observations and building from there?
Sure. In college, I went to the Jefferson Community and Technical College here. I took one theater class, and yeah, I enjoyed it a lot more than the aircraft maintenance classes I was taking, and it was just a blast. And so as far as education, that was about it, aside from just trying to help people with student films and trying to get better each time, and just trying to hone in on the art of it. And but yeah, as far as my acting education goes, it's really just experience and watching YouTube, preparing for doing a lot of auditions too, and that sort of thing. So.
Have you been given any kind of advice in the realm of acting that kind of stuck out with you and has really shaped how you do things? Anything that somebody might have told you that you may not have thought of before, and it just completely changed your direction?
I've had a lot of, I'd say a lot of people that are encouraging. I don't think I'm really, I don't know anything special, honestly. I've had a fair amount of people say too, just stick to your day job. So yeah, I can't think of anything. I mean, I've get a lot of the films I've been lately helping out with. I've gotten a lot of positive feedback, which is nice and encouraging.
What is next on your agenda in regards to either filmmaking or acting? Do you have more films in the can or not in the can necessarily, but in the works that you are wanting to film? And if so, is there anything you could talk about yet, or is that still on the hush hush?
No, tomorrow I do a table read. It's a film called Tears of a Clown, and I'm playing almost kind of like a Joker character, I think, kind of. So I think that will be pretty. We'll start filming this weekend. I think that'll be a pretty involved role, and I'll get to really pull out a lot of emotion, I think, and hopefully do okay. I mean, just after seeing the Joker, just to do anything compared to how he portrayed the character will be tough. But that, and then Sunday I'm helping out with another buddy who I helped out with a lot of films in Indy. On Backstage.com, I saw, actually it was one of his casting calls, and he was, I think, helping the casting director for this film, and they said right before my wedding, they said send in a video audition, but I had to leave town, and he was in the wedding, so I see him at the wedding, get some drinks in him, and I'm like, yeah, so what's up with this film? What's going on? It sounds like you got budget for this and that, and by the end of the wedding, I got the part. so Sunday I'm heading to Indy. So yeah.
You work your connection. You do everything you can. That's a good call.
That's right.
If somebody were to come up to you after watching a Mac and a Mike, and they said, this is something I've always wanted to do, how do I even get started? What would you give them for advice?
Sure. I would say in kind of what I did in Indy, where I realized I need to start taking, when I started dispatching, I need to start being proactive with it. So I would go on Craigslist to start out, which is kind of sketchy, so be careful. And that's how I met my buddy in Indy, and I was a cop in one of his films that's on... I don't think it's on Amazon. I think actually you just put it on YouTube, and I don't know if he did film festivals or what with it, but it's called The Setup, and I think he did a great job, but it was fun. I was a cop in that, and then pretty much the people you meet, it just leads from one thing to the next, I kind of found, and just, I think, never put any yourself above any role. So even if it's a student, non-paid film, and let's say you have an agent and you're getting paid to do films, obviously maybe that'll take precedence, but if you got some time to help out some kids or students trying to increase their resume as a director or a filmmaker or a videographer or whatever, if you can, I'd say just as much involvement as you can, and I think one thing will lead to the next, and you'll meet people and you'll increase your resume, and I think just doing it. I did The Dinner Detective, which is a dinner theater in Indy, and I didn't get it when I first auditioned, and then 6 months later they called me, and then I did a couple shows with them, which was fun. And they gave me the easiest role. I was the first guy to walk in and die. And I was done. But it was it was fun and experience, and getting in front of people, and if you can do it in front of live people, the camera should be no issue. So it's I think just doing it, really, just doing it,
Now, I always like to kind of wind down the interview with a couple of off-the-wall questions. If you're familiar with Inside the Actor's Studio, it's kind of along the same lines that James Lipton will ask specific questions, but mine are a little bit different.
Sure.
So let's just kind of see what's the first thing that comes to your mind. It doesn't even necessarily have to pertain to your craft.
Sure.
It's just you in general. So the first question I have, what is a fault of yours that you have no intention of changing?
Well, that's a tough one. Okay, I'm sure there's probably a lot. You know what? Sometimes I think this is like I feel like a job interview where like you say that humble response that makes you sound great, because I do think sometimes and I kind of feel like a jerk even say this, but like sometimes I think I've been told sometimes I can be over polite, and maybe it'll come off as fake, and sometimes it is. And so I would say sometimes I can be a little bit over polite. Sometimes it's just my nature, I think, but sometimes over polite to a fault where once you do, it's like if you're at work and you're too polite, and that one time you go off on somebody, it throws everybody off, and you will definitely be judged on your worst moment. So if you set the bar a little lower, there's less to go down, I think, than if you're way up here with just trying to be kind and nice, and then when you do slip, it can be a lot more of a fall, I guess. So I off the top of my head, that's what I guess I can come up with there.
No, that's good. I like that. The next question I have, who are your favorite fictional heroes?
Fictional heroes. I don't watch a lot of sci-fi. I know everybody on here is going to hate me for this. I fell asleep during Endgame twice. And my wife about killed me. Because obviously we saw it again the second time. I guess Batman, who's trying to, fight for the right, the good of the city, fight against the Joker, do good, I guess. I enjoyed Deadpool, but I don't think he's somebody you should want to look up to. But yeah.
Next question: what non-creative passion do you pursue?
I love to play poker. Yeah, I love to play poker. I can sit around a poker table for 10 hours and be just love it, and can't wait to go back and play. But obviously now that I'm married, I might not be playing as much poker.
Do you feel like your acting skill came into play when it came to bluffing?
I think at times, yeah, absolutely.
No wonder you like to play it. I'm good at this.
Nothing like just acting like you're so upset at a hand and tricking your opponent and making a couple $100.
Yep. And finally, do you have a personal motto? And if so, what is it?
Personal motto. Well, on my left arm here, I have in Hebrew, "Don't worry," and my wife has "Be happy." So I like "Don't worry, be happy." L'chaim, to life. That's a Jewish one. But I'd say my number one probably "Don't worry, be happy." And sometimes I have to. We did that too because not only like a thing to do together, but I think that's important too. I think we all have we're destined for something, and worrying is kind of pointless. So to an extent.
So tell us again the name of your film and where people can find it.
You got it. Thanks, Ray. It's a Mic and a Mac, and it's spelled like a microphone, abbreviated MIC, and the word "and" or the "and" symbol, A, and then Mac as in Mac computer, Macintosh, MAC, and it's on Amazon Prime. So if you got an Amazon Prime membership, it's free to watch. Feel free to leave a comment, good or bad, or 1 or 5 stars. It doesn't matter. It's just fun to have people see it, and and yes, sir.
All right, wonderful. Well, David, thank you so much for coming on Creative Louisville and telling us about your movies and your career.
All right, thanks for the great opportunity, Ray, and having me, and pleasure. Thank you very much.
And thank you for listening to Creative Louisville on 100.9 FM, WCHQ, and on WCHQFM.com. Stay tuned for audition news with Naoma. Hope to have you here again next week, and until then, stay creative.